So this weekend, we're, as a nation, as a parish, as a state here in New York, and as a city, the memory of September 11th, 2001 is still very fresh in our minds as we commemorated the 19th anniversary of the tragedy last Friday. I was only in third grade when the attacks occurred, and it really shaped my worldview and the worldview of my classmates and friends. We were so young, and a lot of the innocence of our experience was kind of taken and shaped through that event. That event followed me through life when I arrived at the seminary, my first year in the seminary up in Yonkers at Dunwoody. I was in my first year, and there was a seminarian who was in his fourth year, and he was an older guy. He was in his 60s, which is kind of atypical of a seminarian, someone studying to be a priest. And he had a really interesting story. He was, before he entered the seminary, he was a captain in the FDNY, and he was a first responder down at the towers on September 11th. And every year he would kind of recount his memory of that day on the anniversary of September 11th. And he was sharing with us, again, this was only my first couple of weeks at the seminary, he was sharing his memories of that day, and he talked about the obvious difficult moments of losing friends and the chaos and the destruction everywhere and the sadness. But then he started talking about the memories that he had of the days after, of September 12th and on. And he talked about the people that lent a hand, the volunteers that came. He told two really powerful little stories. One was the New York Rangers hockey team came to the firehouse. And they just spent time. It wasn't like a photo op, it wasn't like a goodwill tour. They genuinely cared for these first responders and firefighters. And it was a level of deep human connection. The second story that Tom told was about a bunch of kids that set up a little lemonade stand right outside the firehouse to raise money for the firefighters. And obviously it was just a very small gesture, but with great love. And Tom told those stories, and he had the juxtaposition between the horror and the tragedy and the goodness and the beauty of people reaching out. And he said all of the bad stuff that happened, the towers falling, the rubble, the chaos, he said that was like a blur. It's almost like it didn't happen. It's like a bad dream. But the good moments, the people who reached out, the Rangers, those kids with the lemonade stand, he said those memories are like seared into my mind. I think it's easy for all of us to be very overwhelmed. 9/11 is just one example, but with everything going on in the world, and it's continuing to happen in the world. This pandemic is still very much a reality, even though we're learning to adapt. The tension that is existing in our country is a cause of great stress and anxiety. There's so many things, whether it's in terms of the country and the world, or even personal crosses or challenges or struggles that can seem overwhelming and can seem like chaos. And I think Tom's story reminds me that in the midst of that, the little, small, seemingly insignificant gestures of goodness that occur all around us are moments that remind us, that take us out of that darkness and show us the truth of who we are. That hatred never wins over goodness, that evil never conquers goodness. And perhaps whatever your situation might be, whatever crosses or challenges you might be experiencing, perhaps you'll have that blessing of a small encounter, of a small experience, of the goodness of someone that loves you, that shows us and reminds us of the truth that God loves us, and that He's always with us, and that He's always bringing us out of the darkness into His marvelous light.